A letter. H. She didn't blink for fear she might reopen her eyes and find they were playing tricks on her. She was hunting for her father, the man she called Harmless. Rye tried to temper her excitement as she glanced up at the sliver of sky peeking through the limbs high above, the muted sun hanging low behind the trees. The long days of summer were now gone, and roaming after dusk was far too dangerous. She bit her lip. Could she afford to wait to see if it was Harmless who returned to this camp? No. But she could leave a message of her own and come back at first light. Rye removed the knife called Fair Warning from the sheath in her oversized boot and began to carve the stubborn bark. "The sap in these trees is no good for sugaring," a coarse voice called out behind her. Rye spun at the sound. A man appeared from the trees on the opposite side of the clearing, his footfalls nearly silent. A hunter's bow was slung over his shoulder, and he dragged the carcass of a red stag behind him. His gaunt cheeks and wary eyes reflected the face of someone who'd spent many days alone in the forest. Unfortunately, it was a face she didn't recognize. Rye's first instinct was to flee, but it occurred to her that this huntsman might have useful information. Here, in the lightly travelled reaches north of the Shale, information was more valuable than gold grommets. She sheathed Fair Warning, backed away a safe distance, then stopped, confident she could outrun the stranger if need be. "Do you speak, child?" the huntsman asked when she offered no reply. "Are you a feruling?" He eyed the grime that covered her coat. Ferulings were humans who lived in isolation beyond the Shale, reclusive and untamed. They'd adapted to the way of the wood in order to survive. In all of Rye's recent travels, she'd met only one. "I'm no feruling," she said, "and I'm not looking for sap." The huntsman raised an eyebrow. "You do speak, and with a drowning accent, if I'm not mistaken." He sucked a tooth behind a rough beard. "That's right," Rye said. "And if you know village drowning, then you're no feruling either." The huntsman abandoned the stag, pulled the hand axe from the log, and plodded to the tree she'd carved. He jabbed the bark with the axe head as he stooped and examined it. "Letters R and H. What do they stand for?" he asked, casting a suspicious glance at her. When he looked back, Rye had removed her cudgel from the sling over her shoulder. "R is for Rye," she replied, "and H is for Harmless. That's who I'm looking for. But make no mistake, he's not harmless at all." She tightened her grip. "And neither am I." The huntsman chuckled. "Put your twig away," he scoffed. Her twig was a high aisle cudgel, a dangerous weapon made from the hardest blackthorn in all the Shale. If the huntsman was as well-travelled as he was road-worn, he would have known it. Rye didn't put it down. "Have you come across anyone in these woods lately?" she asked, gesturing her cudgel toward the trees. "A man, maybe? Travelling alone?" "Travellers are rare in the forest, as are young girls. And yet, strange enough, both have wandered into my camp in recent days." The huntsman studied her carefully before speaking again. "There was a man. Appeared like a ghost, startled me while I fixed my supper. He was cordial enough, but didn't linger." That sounded like Harmless, Rye thought. "Did you notice anything else about him?" she asked. "Was he wearing an unusual necklace? Like this?" With her thumb, Rye hooked the runestone choker she wore around her neck so that the huntsman could see it. She saw a flash of recognition in his eyes. Then they shifted, as if calculating something. "It's possible, although I don't have a keen eye for jewelry," he said coolly. But his expression had already betrayed his real answer. "When did he leave?" Rye demanded. "Do you remember which way he went?" "I do," he replied, his face expressionless. "He was heading south along the Wend, but the rest of the details have already been bought."